Welcome to episode 10 of March Malcontent, the yearly preseason qualifier to the April Anger tournament season. Our first match is going to be between Mega Man and Stever. So by order of business, I guess I should explain that we are now on round 3 of pre-qualifiers. So we have, I believe, 16 amiibo left. No, that doesn't make sense. We have 24 amiibo left and 16 spots left, which means that we have 8 amiibo who won't be making it. So I guess they have a 2/3 chance of making it into the tournament. All the amiibo that are fighting currently are amiibo who lost their first match but won the second match. So we've got 24 in total, 16 who are going to be making it. So for this round, I guess I'll call it round 3 of the pre-qualifiers, if you win the match, you make it into the tournament. And then the remaining 8 amiibo will have to compete for the remaining 4 slots, if I have that right. You know what? I'm going to check right now. Yep, there's going to be 4 spots left. Always got to double check. I don't like to be wrong, at least when I don't have to be. And I guess I never have to be wrong, so I don't like to be wrong. Minecart, it turns out it's a pretty good recovery option since you can just throw it out and jump out of it. It does take an iron, but there aren't too many moves that Steve has as a character. Oh, a vicious spike. There aren't too many moves that Steve has as a character that uses iron, especially ones that you don't want to use as much as the minecart move. Minecart move obviously being the one that uses the most iron. And I believe if you do it airborne, then you don't need to use material to make the tracks when it's rolling around on the ground. Like, there might be a base cost, but it's a lot cheaper to do so. Meanwhile, the only other moves I know of that use iron would be down air, which is actually one other move that you do actually want to save your iron for. So when you think about it, you get thrown away and you use your iron to use a down air to make it back to the ground safely, and Stever's gonna die at 0. Use a down air to make it back to the stage, or if you're launched horizontally, you use a side special, minecart, to make it back to the stage horizontally. And then the only other moves aside from that are down throw, which I believe is supposed to be the combo throw. It throws an anvil on the player, so it does take iron. But usually Steve isn't down throwing opponents. Usually he's actually just throwing them off stage. Maybe I see a lot of Steves do that because they just don't want to use their iron on the throw. They have better stuff they'd like to use it on. Oh, you can use it to craft weapons, but you only need 1 iron, and the weapons get a lot of use out of them. And I believe his down special, actually, the TNT, uses a little bit of iron as an ingredient in the construction of it. So I guess there's only 4 moves that use iron. 2 of them are really good, and the other 2 are not good enough that most players just kind of don't bother using the precious iron on them. They'd rather use them on the other moves. Up smash, barely not killing Mega Man at the top of the screen. And I blinked, so I didn't see what move that was, but whatever it was, it killed Mega Man. Steve making it down with the iron. Mega Man actually was able to avoid the anvil itself and catch Stever with another up air. Now, Stever doesn't seem to be jumping out of it, which is good because since the knockback it's a win box, so it actually stacks with whatever momentum you currently have. It does count as knockback still. So basically, if you get hit by Mega Man's up air and you jump out of it, you usually just get voided out in the top blast zone. That's a regrab that Mega Man does not seem to have been interested in punishing. Stever off stage at 100%, starts to be in a kill zone. Ooh, Mega Man's grab coming out just before the forward smash, and that killed. I didn't think it was going to. So you're going to be seeing Mega Man in April Anger. Alright, now we've got Robin against Going to be a very pink match. Also, probably not a great matchup for Robin. I guess I'm just theorizing at this point. Whenever I've predicted who's going to have a hard time, I seem to be wrong more than half the time, which is shameful, I will say. But Robin has a lot of great projectiles, and Jigglypuff is probably just going to be floating over them. I guess the amiibo doesn't use projectiles that much. Granted, Jigglypuff just got a pretty long combo against Robin there. Kind of makes up the fact that she got her rest shielded pretty much immediately into the match. Catching the roll with a rest, going for a down smash. I think normally you go for a forward smash. I think it does more damage. Landing rest. The Jigglypuff amiibo is just so good with those rest callouts, especially since Robin wasn't even there to begin with. I guess that does mean this match Jigglypuff only has a 50%. Jigglypuff just flying because she can at this point. Flying to the other side of the stage, avoiding conflict. Not a bad strategy as Jigglypuff. Up air is going to take the stock. So Robin with the Levin sword, that's the squiggly lightning sword, it does deal good damage and knockback. And Jigglypuff, being a light character, is particularly vulnerable to good damage and knockback. It basically means that Robin kind of has mid-air smash attacks, if it makes sense. Since they're just stronger than the bronze sword aerials that are more in line with other characters, usually a pretty weak character to be honest. But that's kind of the perk of having the breakable weapons, is that in exchange the character has some pretty strong moves that can accompany it. It's especially interesting because in Smash Ultimate, just due to the pace of the game, the breakable tomes and swords are much less of a deal. Although I say that, I'm pretty sure that every Robin player is probably currently thinking of the last time they had a sword break at the inopportune moment. But the breakable weapons are much less of a deal than they used to be in Smash 4. You don't really get crippled when you don't have a particular tome available. And Jigglypuff got a parry off of that. I didn't know you could parry off of invincibility, even. But also, since some of Robin's other stats, predominantly things like running speed on the ground, you can see she's actually pretty slow. I think she's one of the few characters who's actually similar to Jigglypuff in terms of grounded run speed. Jigglypuff, however, has an amazing aerial speed to make up for it, and Robin's okay, but like, it's not the dominant aerial menace that Jigglypuff is. That, and of course, the good read call out from Jigglypuff. That actually, I think, puts her back in the running for being able to win this match. I mean, I suppose she was always possible, but she really needed something like that in order to catch up. Jigglypuff resting out of down throw. She's getting insane with these. Up air, not quite enough to kill. Jigglypuff is starting to hit kill-ish percents. And I guess Robin is too if you count rest. Rest in down tilt? Oh, Robin had a double jump, so she's able to make that back. Only one hit of the Levin sword left. Alright, that's going to recharge. This is actually a good timing for Jigglypuff, since Jigglypuff does not want to be getting hit by that move. Catching the ledge grab with pound? Normally you can't do that. I mean, I guess you can, but why? And also how? Now, Levin Sword is regenerated. It's actually somehow already at half health. Jigglypuff going incredibly high, using all of her jumps. Not quite getting killed, but she keeps going into the stratosphere, losing all of her evasive options. She is... I don't know what she's trying to do. Time out Robin. Actually, Robin shielded way too early there, so the shield degraded so much that Jigglypuff's down air was able to shield poke it. Up air is going to take the match in Robin's favor. Despite some outstanding plays by Jigglypuff, it just wasn't enough to survive getting hit in the face with a Thunder Sword. Alright, here we've got Incineroar against Mythra. Got a large fire cat versus a light woman. Which, it occurs to me that Pokemon, there are male and female Pokemon, and Incineroar isn't exempt from that. Which I guess means that the Incineroar in Smash Ultimate could be female. Would be a little bit of an interesting choice, especially since Incineroar, the fur pattern seems to naturally have abs painted on them. Not that, you know, women aren't allowed to have abs, but it's just something you don't normally think about, especially since all of Incineroar's voice lines very clearly sound like a dude just yelling out the word Incineroar. It's actually kind of funny, he has to kind of rush to get the word out in time, because Incineroar is a 4-syllable word. And they seem to be committed to saying the full name every time the move lands. Which, now to think about it, is actually a convention taken from the show of Pokemon. Normally, any, like, expanded media doesn't particularly make it into the games. However, Pokemon being such a large franchise that is so ingrained... And that's a... Alright, that was a very quick stock. Mythra just extended a little too much, got stomped on by a large cat. She's off stage. Able to make it back, actually. Okay, I thought the match was about to end right there. So, normally, things from expanded Nintendo media don't exactly make it into the game. However, Footstool? Incineroar, I think, saved Mythra's life right there. I guess saved being a relative term, because he plans on ending it pretty quick. But things from expanded media don't normally make it into the games. However, the notion of Pokemon only being able to say their own names, I don't think has ever been mentioned in the games. Maybe it has by this point, but back in like the 90s, when the games were just on the Game Boy, they didn't have the hardware to make sound clips sound like the Pokemon names. They were just kind of all screeches. I can't actually remember off the top of my head which game had viable sounding audio that could actually sound like... Ooh, now that I think about it, Pokemon, the series as a whole, hasn't really had much sound design. There's actually people who are still talking about how Pokemon's been around for about 30 years and it still doesn't have voice acting. Which is a valid complaint. Well, I wouldn't say complaint, I guess it's a valid concern, just in that the game's back here near the side of the stage. That's usually not the move that Incineroar kills with. Granted, it's normally a low-end whip, because it's just a really great move, but... Alright, for this match we're going to be having Ness against Luigi. Gonna be on Battlefield for this one. Probably not super great for Luigi, because he's going to try to be getting a lot of grabs. And probably just fine for Ness, who has a lot of long aerial combos. Oh, here's one now. Forward air to forward air. The Ness staple. Luigi doing a pretty good job of actually holding his ground despite of what I just said. I do seem to have a terrible track record with predicting which innate advantages an amiibo will have. I believe I even said a similar thing previous episode, then was immediately proven wrong. Luigi put off stage, able to make it back. Luigi doesn't have a great airspeed. Something to know about the character. His ground speed's fine. Like, he's obviously not Sonic the Hedgehog, but it just is a lot better than his aerial speed. Kind of interesting, because he's a better jumper than Mario in pretty much all depictions nowadays. So he has a better vertical... Well, I can't really call it a vertical speed, but since his jump is bigger, it effectively gives him a more effective dangerous range vertically, but then because of his poor airspeed, it's less effective horizontally. When, of course, he's not running on the ground. When he's on the ground, he's pretty on par with Mario. In fact, in a lot of games, he's also usually shown as being faster than Mario, so he's the least popular brother, which is a weird sentence to say because there's two of them. He's the less popular brother, but he can run faster, jump higher. Usually the only ever disadvantage Luigi is shown as having is, like, maybe slightly lower traction, which is actually in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, but traction especially isn't a factor in this game. Like, it can affect some things, I'm sure, but when you're talking about a character's tournament viability, you're not talking about their traction. I suppose if you were to have a tremendously poor traction that has started having effect on the gameplay, then you would start. But at that point, you start getting a character with such extreme qualities that, well, effectively they become unusable. In general, one of the strengths of the Smash Bros. Series is that everyone is usable on a generic level, maybe with the exception of Min Min. Just because a couple of her moves work just differently enough. But even then, if you know how to smash attack people, and you know how to run and jump, then you can navigate the stage and you can hit people. And if you're playing with friends, then there's items in the mix, and that changes the whole dynamic as well. Ness getting the weak hit of down air. I don't think it probably would have killed after bouncing off the stage, but you never know. Or at least I don't. Been commentating this tournament series for a while now, and there's something I've learned is that when I think I know something, I often don't. Gotta start putting salt on my feet because they end up in my mouth so much they might as well season them from time to time. Actually, no, that would establish a precedence of eating feet, and I just remember that there's part of the internet that's into that, and I'd rather stay away from that. Ness tried to get out an up smash there. So Ness's up smash, not a bad move. However, it comes out slowly because he has to pull out the yo-yo and then has to do the little arc all around him. So he actually usually doesn't use it to punish landings just because it comes out, well, it effectively comes out above him so slow. However, because it's an up smash that hits all around the character, like, no joke, it hits a 180-degree arc around him. It's actually really good for things like catching rolls and get-up options. If you don't know where the opponent's going to be, you can just use up smash. There's a good chance it hits them. It actually kind of works a lot like the yo-yo ability from Kirby Superstar, and some Kirby games since then as well. I believe the ability is an actual specific reference to Ness, or they designed the ability and they realized there were some references to be made. Kirby being made by Hell Laboratories and Earthbound, actually Hell Laboratories helped with the sound design. They're in the credits, so I guess they could have helped out with other things as well. But normally in those days, when they were on a project that wasn't solely by Hell Laboratories, it was because they had experience in the sound department. But also I didn't work on the team, so what can I tell you? But anyway, so Kirby did actually, well, Kirby's developers did have experience with Earthbound. It's actually kind of why Ness made it into the first Smash Brothers. I mean, I guess it is Sakurai's choice at the end of the day, but he had a development team who was familiar with the character, and I don't think Sakurai's actually in the credits for Earthbound. He probably was working on some other project at the time. He's a very busy man. Honestly, I kind of diagnose him as a workaholic. But he also makes really good games. So if he's overworking himself, then I guess it's fine. As long as no external forces are overworking Sakurai into creating amazing games. Basically, I just want him to be happy. Alright, for our next match, we're going to be having Samus against Terry. Going to be on Skyloft for this one. Wide stage with some platforms. Samus with immediate down throw to up smash combo? Did I see that right? Am I misremembering? You normally can't get that. I suppose if the opponent were to DI in and not try to escape, then it could be possible. Raw forward smash. Not actually hitting the sweet spot, but hitting Terry, so take what you can get. Terry trying to hit a lot of these down tilts. It is a very good move. Really hard to hit people when you're on a platform and they're not, though. Terry already gets go meter. Samus gets a spike, but it's completely over the stage, so it's not going to be killing. Point blank missile. Throw. Terry is just struggling to return back to the stage. Samus goes for a spike, but Terry activates his recovery quick enough to hit her out of it. Looks like it's going to be a pretty quick match, it's looking like. It's weird because normally Samus is a slower character, but she is just dominating that extensively. Falling up air into up smash. Again, combos you don't see every day. Actually hitting both hits of jab. And a spike. We've probably got a pretty quick game on our hands. Samus is just doing phenomenally. Terry finally lands a hit this stock. Not a kill move, though. He will be getting go meter soon, especially at the rate that Samus just keeps hitting him with stuff. No, wait, I was looking at Samus's percentage. Samus would have go meter right now, but that's not a mechanic she has. Back here near the side of the stage, is able to take the stock. But Terry is effectively one stock behind. And given his penchant for getting his teeth altered for the start of this match, unless some big changes happen, I don't think he's got too much more life to live. Power Dump trying to hit Samus with the top of the hitbox. It's always an option, but it's not nearly as consistent as landing a jab on the opponent first. Terry does have go meter. Is he gonna be able to, I don't know, maybe use it? He could have... Oh, he did use it there, but he actually got hit for it, believe it or not. There's a little bit of armor on the move, it appears. Probably makes it more consistent to land. Is kind of the problem with the command input moves in the game. Alright, I really hope you guys didn't have to suffer through that terrible audio glitch. And that's a spike. That's going to end the match. Alright, now we've got Pokemon Trainer against Kazuya. Going to be on New Donk City. One of the transformation moving stages. Wow, some quick heavy hits from Kazuya there. I guess most of his hits are pretty heavy hits. Brutal throw angle on Squirtle there. Squirtle having to go towards the ledge to recover. It is actually something a human player has an advantage over any of the AI opponents, is that you can see where the stage transition is going and where you'll need to be effectively. And Kazuya with a quick kill on Pokemon Trainer as Squirtle. Now switching to Charizard, getting thrown again immediately, deep off stage. Can Charizard make that back? Yes. Kazuya has not taken much damage, but he got killed off the side of the screen regardless. Playing on these platforms here. Charizard going a little low. Goes towards the platform instead of the ledge. Oh, getting stunned in front of Kazuya is always a terrifying position to be in. It's not a guaranteed death sentence, but it's not great, to say the least. Charizard needs to recover. Successfully does. But also at 140%, and that's enough to get killed again. Squirtle chaining up airs, don't see that every day. Unless, I mean, I guess if you wanted to, you could. Bullet Seed, the move that I think is honestly kind of underrated. Well, it's difficult to compete with Ivysaur's up smash. Alright, I guess I'm not going to be talking about that move. Alright, here we've got Mr. Game & Watch against Diddy Kong. Two lightweight characters with extensive juggling. This is an interesting stage choice, specifically because if you remember, Mr. Game & Watch's last match was also on this stage. And due to its high ceiling and just the platform arrangement, he got so many up airs. And actually got to the point where it was difficult to commentate. Because there's only so many different ways you can say, and Mr. Game & Watch hit another up air. Part of that is due to the amiibo's chronic inability to figure out how to escape it. Alright, we've seen the first of probably many to come. Up smash from Diddy Kong, not quite enough to kill Mr. Game & Watch. Mr. Game & Watch air dodging through the forward air pretty much saved his life there. Diddy Kong gets the neutral air, but he's not able to hit the up air out of it. Diddy Kong does at, I think it's kind of percent specific, but he does have, well, I think they're either confirms or hard reads. I'm not entirely sure because I haven't labbed them out myself. And I know a lot about this game, but I don't have every single character's... I mean, I guess you know a lot about their win conditions, or their, like, what they're usually going for. And I've often seen Diddy Kongs hit, like, a neutral air into something. Usually it's near the ledge, they'll hit a neutral air, and then they'll get a down air out of it. And since that's a spike, it's actually pretty dangerous. Especially since Diddy Kong actually has a rather good spike, I'd say. So it takes a little bit to come out, but as a result, when it does, it's kind of strong, actually. So having a move that can convert into that at the ledge, even if there are corollaries to when you can actually land it, it's not a bad trait for a character to have. Diddy Kong now getting hit in the wrath of 1,000 up airs. Goes to the side of stage, actually gets a smash attack on Mr. Game & Watch. It seems that all of Diddy Kong's multi-hit smash attacks are actually doing a pretty good job of actually hitting Mr. Game & Watch. Mr. Game & Watch is kind of a tiny character, and usually the benefit of a multi-hit is that since there's multiple hits, there's more chances to actually hit the opponent. So for example, against Diddy Kong's forward smash, I wouldn't advise trying to spot dodge against it, because even if you miss the first hit, you'll probably still get hit by the second hit, which is where all the knockback is. You can actually see there Mr. Game & Watch let up his shield too early, and he got hit. So it wasn't a spot dodge, but it was exactly what we were talking about. The downside of multi-hits is that there is always a chance for an opponent to fall out of them. Even if multi-hits as a whole have been made incredibly consistent, actually, in Smash Ultimate, there are still some circumstances where they're not guaranteed. Which, honestly, I'm kind of fine with. First of all, it does mean there's, like, certain drag-down combo shenanigans you can do on... depending on the move, of course. But also, it does mean that the multi-hits aren't just strictly better than single-hit moves. Although, I guess if your character has a bunch of multi-hits, you're gonna be just so mad every time any single one of them drops. The human condition seems to be that we don't remember luck in our favor, but we remember luck when it is vehemently opposed to us. Alright, and for our last match of the video, we're going to be having Kirby Smash Brothers against Pac-Man. Two incredibly round characters with a face, trying to get one of the few remaining guaranteed spots into the tournament. Quick 40% damage from Kirby, Oh, 60% unanswered from Pac-Man. Pac-Man tries to hit a smash attack, but it doesn't seem to have connected. Side special into the hydrant. Does not hit Kirby with the hydrant. So it worked as an escape option, I suppose. Forward smash, barely not killing Pac-Man. Kirby, it was really hard to tell there, but I'm pretty sure he went for a spike, a down air. But Pac-Man's side special does have armor on it. So that's usually why you don't see people smacking him out of it, because it's kind of a fool's errand to do so. Like, if you have enough of a disjoint or, like, a counter, then, you know, go for it. Who am I to stop you? However, if you don't, especially since how fast the move travels, that even if you have just a sword for your disjoint, it's probably not going to be enough. Kind of interesting that in Smash Brothers, there's certain combinations of traits that most characters have in order to make them viable in some fashion. For example, a lot of Swords characters just have a sword, which gives them a reach advantage over their opponents. So for the opponents who don't have a sword, they usually have something else, usually a projectile or a movement option. Often both. Wow, Kirby getting some pretty good combos there. So they can use that to try to overcome the reach advantage innate with the sword characters. If you don't have any of those, like I guess you could be Ganondorf, who actually does have more reach than a lot of characters just because of his size, but he also has immense power. I guess Bowser kind of also fits into this. It gets difficult to specifically quantify all the Smash Brothers characters, especially since they've done such a good job trying to make them all unique in some fashion. For example, the Bowser Ganondorf example, Bowser technically has a projectile because his fire breath is a projectile, but usually it's not getting reflected due to the nature of the move, so it doesn't have those disadvantages, so you can kind of just treat it as a large extended hitbox. And both characters hit the trampoline, they get put into special fall. Always one of the dangers of the Pac-Man trampoline. Well, that was a little quicker than expected, but that's it for this episode. We've got another episode coming up where we've got a couple more qualifiers into the tournament, and then we're going to have to reshuffle the rules are going to change again, but we'll explain that when it happens. Until then, though, bye.